Welcome to the Student Hub Live. Well, my name's Karen Foley and I'm a lecturer here at the Open University. And this is our Student Hub Live event for the Faculty of Arts and Social Sciences. And this event is all about psychology and counselling. Now, we've got lots of new students in the chat and some of our regulars as well. We've got people from Italy, Africa, and elsewhere in the EU, as well as, of course, in the United Kingdom. But a lot of you are new, so let me explain how this event works. So this is one of our induction programmes from the Open University, and these events are all live and online and interactive. So you've logged on, you should be able to see some chat pods on your screen, and you can chat in those to HJ and Damon, who I'll introduce you to in a minute. And you'll also see lots of interactive tools or widgets. And we've got things like a map, we've got a word cloud that says, how are you feeling right now? Now, some of those have 3 things in them, but if you can only think of 1 or 2, that's just fine, but you need to put a full stop in each box, otherwise your results won't submit. We've also got things like do you agree or disagree and what are you most excited about, worried about. So fill those in and they will make a fabulous word cloud that we'll show you a bit later on in the programme. When you fill them in, of course, you can see what other people say as well, so that's an added incentive also. Now you can chat about whatever you want to. I know there's conversations about cookies and waistlines and studying and tutors and all sorts going on. And you can do that in the chat to each other. And HJ and Damon will tell us your pertinent questions that you'd like me to put to our guests as well as we move through the programme. So HJ and Damon, welcome. How are you both?
Doing really well. We're super busy on the chat this morning, which is fantastic to see. There's lots of people coming in. I think with the chat, we always say that anything goes. We want to hear your thoughts, comments, questions. How are you doing? Where are you from? Melanie tells us she's from Italy. Is there anyone else further than Italy? I know Terry started off today with coffee and lots of snacks. So if you've got any snacks, please share, because my desk is looking quite desolate. But yeah, me and Damon are here to put your thoughts and questions to our fantastic guests in the studio. They love to answer your questions or hear what you think about studying. There's lots of people just starting off, so I know it's really exciting and we're looking forward to chatting with you.
And I hear there's a gap from Surrey and Aberdeen, so let us know if you're in Surrey or Aberdeen just by clicking on where you are in the UK. Now, Damon, you work for the Faculty of Arts and Social Sciences and you're a tutor, so what are you hoping to get out of today's session in addition to just chatting away with everyone?
I'm hoping to get lots of information across to people about the stuff that we do, the ways that we can help people keep in contact, and just generally make sure everyone is welcome and relaxed about going into their studies.
Brilliant. It's an exciting time of year. So to fill you in on some of the key things we think you need to know about, what our plan is for today is first to introduce you to the whole topic areas of psychology and counselling. Then we've got a session about starting well in your psychology and counselling module. Then we're going to introduce you to some members of the academic team here at the Open University, and then take a look at assessment, something that's very, very important for many students, and we'll explain some of the different types of assessment and why they matter. We'll then tell you what support is available for you, both from students and also our student support team. And then, as Damon just mentioned, we'll tell you some of the various ways you can keep in touch with the faculty. Now, this is one of many events that we've got lined up. Next Monday, we've got our general induction for the Open University. So if you're a new student, we'll talk to you about the virtual learning environment, about your tutor. We'll give you the opportunity to try it, Adobe Connect Tutorial, which is the tutorial platform we use, and lots more. And all of that is available on the Student Hub Live website. So there's plenty in store for you, and plenty of opportunities to connect with other students. So you can check out all those events that are there. But we must start by introducing you to Rachel Penny and Graham Pike. Now, we're going to cover this broad area. And firstly, my question to you, Graham, is what is psychology?
Hi Karen, and hi everyone at home, and welcome to our new students. Welcome to the Open University and welcome to the Faculty of Arts and Social Sciences. As a former OU student myself, I can say you made a great decision in joining us.
It's a very good sidetrack, Graham.
What is psychology? Psychology is the study of mind and behaviour, which is a nice one-sentence response to that question, which actually belies a great deal of complexity. It's a very, very broad discipline. It covers the study of children and how children develop social interactions, how their minds develop. It covers personality, it covers how our brains work, it covers how society works, how people interact in groups. So it's a very diverse discipline covering a broad array of very fascinating subjects.
And how would you say, Rachel, it's different from counselling?
So I think they are very similar in many ways because they're both concerned about people, and they both at the starting point of trying to help people, trying to understand people. And I think where psychology is trying to understand behaviour and how the mind works and stuff, in counselling, trying to work alongside people to help kind of help them make positive changes, improve their well-being. So very focused around their feelings and thought patterns and how maybe there's things that are stopping them making positive change or affecting their well-being in some way. So both of them have a lot of theories underpinning them. In psychology, we are absolutely, it's a science, and so it's really based around evidence and trying to really focus on what evidence is there to kind of help build our picture of understanding of people. But they work alongside each other. They are absolutely intertwined at that global sense of helping people, understanding people better, and how we can do that. So there's a very practical application with counselling, but again, that's rooted in theory and understanding. And so when you're studying it, it's really important to know if you're looking at the practical side or looking at the understanding, the kind of theory and understanding the behaviour and things like that.
Brilliant. Now here we've got people from Aberdeen in as well, and you might want to comment in the chat about what you're studying and also why you're doing it, because I'd love to be able to feed some of that into our discussion as well. So, how do we teach some of this stuff at the Open University? Because they're huge areas, and of course we're doing distance learning here. So some of the stuff that students might learn about is very practical, some of it's very, theoretical, etc. How do we teach that, and how does the sort of structure look to students?
So students will sign up to modules, and that can be true of other universities as well. It was funny when you mentioned Aberdeen and Surrey, because those are the two universities I studied at. So hello, anybody in Aberdeen and Surrey?
Sorry, I don't think.
Come on, sorry. But certainly in the OU, they will sign up to different modules each year, and depending on whether you're studying at full-time intensity or part-time will make a decision about how many modules you're studying. But essentially, you will choose, some modules be compulsory, and it depends which qualification you're on. So making the decision about the qualification you're interested will open up some choices, close down other choices. So it's good to think about what you're really interested in studying around the subjects of psychology and counselling, and that will then determine which modules you study which year.
And one of the questions we often ask is, how will you know? Like, how will you know then what you enjoy doing? Because often we think, it'd be great, I really want to go and do this. And then all of a sudden we find that maybe that isn't quite what we like doing. We might like reading more or talking to people more or doing different things. So when you experience different skills, you often get more of a feel for what you're doing. Graham, how might students then know or keep track, I guess, of what they're enjoying as they're progressing?
Well, I think the first thing to say is that psychology, like a lot of disciplines at university, people are attracted to it for one reason. Then find out it's about a lot more than just that, and often find out that there's another element that they enjoy more. And really, I think it's just keeping track of yourself. Just, if you read something on how a toddler develops certain skills and really enjoyed it, and you didn't enjoy reading so much about groups and social interactions, then it's what actually grabs you, what makes you want to read more. And I think the important thing is about not being frightened to change your mind. So a lot of people do come very much with the idea that it's about the therapies and it's about counselling or it's about developmental psychology. But they then found these really fascinating things to do with social psychology and how the brain works. And if that's the thing that grabs you, that's fine. I think the other thing is at this stage, at the undergraduate stage, there's no need to specialise. I mean, if you really want to take psychology further, you can specialise at postgraduate level. But at this stage, you're able to keep things broad and open and sample from lots of different pieces. And if you get through to level 3, or when you get through to level 3, you can then say, well, this is the bit I enjoyed the most, and maybe do a bit more on that, a project on that.
And that's the lovely thing about the way that the Open University modules are structured, is that they're so broad. They give you an opportunity to try all these different things and really think about them. We've got people in from Surrey now, Rachel.
Yay.
So let's hear how everyone is at home and why they're studying. HJ.
We've got a lot of great stories about why people are studying and their motivations as well. Kimberly from Scotland decided to study because she's been a full-time carer for her son, and as he's grown up, she wanted to do something for herself when she leaves. So that's absolutely fantastic. And Sally's got great motivation as well for studying. She's doing psychology and counselling. She suffers from PTSD and depression, and support has been limited in her area. So she runs a mental health support group, and she wants to further her knowledge to help others as well. So fantastic motivations for study, and we really like hearing it, because it's great hearing the different ways people are coming into these subjects as well.
Yeah, there's lots of people who haven't studied for a long time, so obviously they're nervous about coming into it. First time that they've studied, it's a completely different model to how they normally study, I guess. So yeah, but just to reassure people, it's a nice, easing into your studies. A lot of questions about tutorials. People will be hearing about their tutorials as things come further online as we move towards module start. So.
Brilliant. Oh, thank you, Damon. Yeah, no, it is really nicely structured, isn't it? So let's talk, you mentioned qualifications and things, and I think it's good just to broadly sort of mention some of the choices that students might have. And also later in the programme today, we're going to be talking about support for you in your studies and the student support team, and outlining the various different things that will support you in your studies. So we'll discuss that later. But Rachel, tell us a little bit about the qualification structure and how that all works.
Yes, so we have in psychology, the 4 main qualifications we have in psychology start with a very broad qualification, as Graham talked about, where you have all the possible options and you would come out with a psychology qualification. But we do have special qualifications, one for psychology and counselling that the student mentioned, one for psychology, forensic psychology, and one for social psychology. So if you already know when you start that that's your kind of main interest, then that's fine. They all start at level 1 broadly similarly. And what's really fantastic at level 1 is that the modules have been written to give you that really wide, broad sense of what the subjects cover, and therefore you have that opportunity to think about if there are particular areas of interest. So you might start on a broad qualification and want to specialise, or vice versa, and you can speak to the student support team about kind of if you, once you start studying, if you realise that actually a different qualification would suit you better. And so that's really important as well. But yes, it's generally about which modules you need to take, differ a bit for each qualification. So that's why you can look at the psychology, the different pathways, the study pathways we talk about, and find out which modules are included. But as I would say, at level 1, they are really broad on purpose so that you can just get used to what the subject is. And I think that that's really important, because there are so many different aspects that you wouldn't have any reason to necessarily know about until you start studying the subject. And I think if you're interested in people, you might know that you're interested in how children develop or what's happening in the police and things like that. But until you actually start studying it, and you might think, actually, I'm really interested in what goes on in the brain and the different parts of the brain, how they work. So you might discover something new that you hadn't expected.
Brilliant. Graham, in a second, I want to ask you about some of the work you're doing for the Research for Centre of Policing Research and Learning. But before I do that, I just want to mention a couple of things. The chat's moving really fast. There's a little pin button on the top right-hand corner, so you can pin that and scroll down, and then you can read comments that other people have put in there as well. And if it is all overwhelming, you can watch this again on catch-up, so you can either just chill out and enjoy the chat and watch what we're saying a bit later if you'd like to, or you can just turn the chat off. So there's no pressure to do anything. Just enjoy the experience and enjoy meeting other students as well. But these videos will be available on catch-up, as will a lot on the other sessions that we do on the Student Hub Live website. The other thing I'd like to just mention is that as an OU student, you have access to the Careers Advisory Service, and I'll be speaking to colleagues with the Careers and Employability Service on next Monday, so you can find out more. But it's always a good idea to think about your career goals as well when you're looking at your qualifications. So Graham, you're doing some really exciting research, and I guess one of these amazing things about the Open University is that we've got so many research active academics who are doing really important things, like driving with a mobile phone and all sorts of things that are having a huge impact on policy and the lives of real people every day. Tell us about some of the stuff you're doing.
Okay, so this is going to be from my own area of research rather than incorporating everything done by the school. No, we are. I'm just apologising to my colleagues for concentrating on me, but that's fine with me. So I work for the Centre of Policing Research and Learning, which is a partnership between the Open University and 21 police services across the UK. And psychology is a big component of that, as well as a number of other disciplines. So some of the projects we're doing at the moment include looking at how you improve police processes for interviewing eyewitnesses. So if somebody's seen a crime, what questions do you ask them? How do you interview them? And particularly, how do you get identifications from them? So if they saw the person, how do you then get them to identify someone? There's a lot of that on the web. Some of the other things we're doing is around driving behaviour. So my colleague Gemma Briggs is doing lots of research on whether hands-free mobile phones are safe or dangerous. And actually what her research has shown is they're as dangerous as using one that you're holding. And some very good psychological reasons for that, which I don't have time to go into. But that research has been picked up through Parliament, and lots of papers written about it. And maybe legislation will change in this country as a result. We've also done a lot of work on how you detect deception. And oddly, we do quite a bit of research on storytelling and how people interact with stories. And a colleague of mine, Zoe Walkington, does work. It always fascinates me that if somebody reads one of the vampire books, I can't think what they're called, those tweeny vampire books, whatever they're called, books about vampires, that after reading them, they will think their teeth are longer than they actually are. And if they read Harry Potter, they'll believe their ability to move things just with the power of their mind is better than the average person's. And there's the psychological theories there about how you engage with people in books and stories and kind of internalise it and identify and actually transport yourself into those worlds. So there's lots of fantastic ways that psychology is applied to very specific things in our everyday lives and in society. And like, as you say, yeah, actually changes society and changes legislation and things that happen to us on an everyday basis.
But the police, I mean, they're not just going to believe something that you say. You mentioned research and things, and that this whole idea you were talking about before about science, psychology, you know, having this sort of scientific element then. How do you actually go about doing some of this stuff? You must be getting big pots of money and then having to produce like a report or something at the end of it with these recommendations.
We do. These are extensive research programmes we're doing. Yes, they are underpinned by several million pounds worth of external grant income from research councils and Home Office and other people. So we employ lots of different research methodologies. So we employ the experimental, which is where you, just like in medicine, you get one group of people to do one thing, one group to do another, and you see how they act differently. We employ qualitative methodological techniques where we're not measuring things, but we're looking at meaning. So we might interview people, conduct focus groups, and we analyse what they say and what their opinions are and what they think about stuff and what meanings they construct from things. We do surveys, and yes, we get all that data together as evidence, analyse it, draw conclusions from it, and then write reports. And a number of those reports kind of brought together, we then through public engagement and engagement with the Houses of Parliament and other legislative bodies, we try to influence policy and get things changed. But at the heart of it is research methods. So a lot of psychology is an academic discipline, a lot of it's scientific. So what academics doing research will do is write a report, which usually appears as a journal article. That you can go to the library or you can go online and read, and the research is detailed there. There's background, there's information about the methods, information about the analysis, and the conclusions drawn. So part of the psychology curriculum is teaching students how to conduct their own research, but also how to read and understand the research that's been done by academic researchers. So part of that is learning about psychological research methods and about psychological research analysis.
So you can see here how when students are studying memory and report writing and experimental methods and things, it would all come together into something that's got a real application. Yeah. But in psychology, it does counselling as well. I mean, colleagues in DD 310 have been working with, prisons and various settings as well to have applications.
Absolutely. And I think that's really important, is the understanding how some of the different challenges of providing therapy in some of these different settings, and what having a counselling session would look like in a private practice, in a building, in a normal kind of street, compared with in the confines of a prison setting or a forensic setting, and what are some of the difficulties, tensions that happen in that kind of environment, and impacts that might have on things like confidentiality and just freedom of talking and things like that. So it's really important that there is this specifically looking at what are those, understanding those better, so that actually therapy in forensic settings can be just as useful for helping those people move forward, helping improve their situation, their well-being, and the way that they're making positive changes, but within a really structured, challenging setting. So there are these really applied ways of understanding things there as well, and a lot of work going on around all of those areas. And you'll encounter that during your studies, depending on the modules you pick. And actually, sometimes people feel a bit intimidated about research methods and what that's going to look like. And there are, you will get support all the way through your degree journey in order to, it's bite-sized. You know, you are prepared for it as you progress in your studies. There are also other things that you can look at as well. So on the BPS website, there's a thing called Research Digest, and that's a really easy way of reading about research that's going on around us today in psychology. So I would really recommend that to students who are kind of going, oh, research sounds a bit scary. Go and have a read. It is designed to be a very readable kind of magazine, sort of articles, sort of breaking down some of the research that's going on. Fascinating to read. You'll get lost for hours in there. It's brilliant.
And I think I'm right in saying the school has its own Twitter feed and blog site.
Yeah.
So you can also read about the research we're doing through our Twitter and blogs.
And we're going to cover that later in the day. So thank you, Rachel. And it also sort of taps into the point students were mentioning earlier about their motivation for studying. And often we're trying to understand ourselves better, but also make the world a better place. And you can see how people can do that with these qualifications. So we're going to play a video next, which is How Stories Shape Our Minds. So Graham, tell us how these BBC videos were made and a little bit about them, but we only have a minute.
Yes. So one of the great things about working with the BBC, with the Open University, is we get to work with the BBC and other filmmaking experts. So these came about, we came up with ideas which we pitched to the BBC. They put us together with people that really knew how to make short films and animations and things like that. So we brought the academic experience and knowledge together with the experience of how to make films. And the BBC made these, they're short films about 4 minutes long, and put them up on their BBC Ideas platform.
Brilliant. Well, Graham, Rachel, thank you so much. That's been a really, really wonderful introduction. I hope you're inspired. We're going to play you one of those films now, How Stories Shape Our Minds, and then we'll be back for our next session in just a minute. See you soon.